This podcast provides a platform to discuss important questions and complex issues, challenge the status quo, and confront the boundaries of the establishment. I'm retired police chief Daniel Hahn. I went from being arrested at 16 to serving over 34 years in law enforcement. My goal is to keep you informed with news not being reported, voices not being heard, and the untold history of how we got here so that we can create a way forward. Okay, so we are on a way forward. I have three very special guests that I think will have some knowledge and information that everybody can use in moving forward. I have Aaron Cardoza, Marvin Mitchell, and Clifford McDowell on the show today. And I want to start by introducing these guys to everybody. So I want to start with Aaron Cardoza, who's from, at least at some point, is from Del Paso Heights. Aaron, if you would talk a little bit briefly about growing up, and at one point you were incarcerated for several years. And so what about your lifestyle at the time or leading up to your arrest led to your several years in incarceration?
Well, I grew up in foster care in Del Paso Heights at the age of like 6. Growing up there, just, coming outside, meeting different people that's in the neighborhood of Del Paso Heights, became friends with them. And so, I was more or less not really gang banging like that, like into gangs. I was just more or less them as the homies. They from the Heights, and that's all I heard was Del Paso Heights, Del Paso Heights. So growing up in that area, it was cool to become cool with my friends. And so later on, going through high school, still just a cool cat, coming off the porch. Everybody liked me in the Heights. And then one time I got shot and robbed by a Crip. And that really would turn me around into a blood, being from Del Paso Heights. And
at some point you were arrested and did time in prison. How many years were you
I did 10 years.
10 years. And today, as like then, I think a lot of people, there's some misunderstanding about this. Like, me being from Oak Park, and I was never gang affiliated myself, but I take a lot of pride in being from Oak Park. So today, would you say you take a lot of pride in DPH?
Today, for sure.
Yeah. And then next we have Marvin, who's from Meadowview. Marvin, same question. Talk a little bit about growing up in the neighborhood, and what about the life you were living or the lifestyle that you were living ultimately resulted in you being incarcerated.
My name is Marvin Mitchell, and I'm from Meadowview. One of the things as I look back that really contributed to me becoming a gang member was just the culture. Growing up in the crack epidemic and seeing the lady that once was giving me a quarter to open up her fence, now she was smoking crack and allowing guys to have sex with her. It really changed my mindset at a young age. And also, it was the musical culture that we were growing up in was reinforcing everything that we were seeing. And so it was kind of like a soundtrack to a lifestyle. And I got caught up in gangs because I grew up right there on the block. I grew up on 69th Street. That's where I'm really from, So growing up seeing guys selling crack, growing up where I had a bunch of unmet needs in the household, and I went outside my household looking for that love and ran into a bunch of dudes who were insecure and had a lot of the same issues that I was having. And so I became a gang member, full-fledged, selling crack in my neighborhood, and really just an unruly criminal. And to a point of seeing a close friend's mother get murdered in 1992, and that turned us up to a different level. And it just really became a war out there in those streets. And I was shot at 17. And
so you were shot too?
Yeah, I was shot at 17. And from that point on, I had the mindset of, I'm not fighting no more. I got shot in a gang fight right there on Loma Verde and Florin right there. And after that, I pretty much like, I'm not fighting no more. And so that became my mindset all the way until I committed murder. I took the life of Bradley Hebert, and just come home almost 2 years now off a 26.5 year to life sentence.
When you say I'm not fighting anymore, I'm assuming what you meant is I'm shooting next
Yeah,
time.
it was just
Right.
a mindset. It was a mind shift with the guys that I grew up around. We called ourselves going to go give some other guys a fair fight. And then when they pulled out a gun, I was shot. And so from that, our mindset changed in that. And that was off the heels.
No more fair fights.
Yeah, and then that was right off the heels of my friend's mom being murdered.
Right.
So, it was a lot going on that created this stew of chaos and violence out there in the South area.
And you talked about a shooting you did yourself. How many years did you do incarcerated?
26.5 years.
So you did 26 and a half years and just got out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, just got out about 19, 20 months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Clifford, same question. I'm a little biased on the neighborhood you're from, but growing up in Oak Park and at some point being incarcerated, what was growing up like? What was the lifestyle that ultimately, or the contributing factors that ultimately led to you being incarcerated?
Growing up too fast. I grew up too fast. I always hung with older people. Like I said, I was driving to school in elementary school and junior high, and I was around the dope area. I got a lot of girl sisters and girl cousins that all had baller boyfriends, and all their boyfriends was in the game, and I followed. And then, like I said, I was selling dope too and stealing cars and this was watching the red rag everywhere, and that's how I got influenced to it, being a follower.
And I think you've been shot too, right?
Yeah.
So all three of you have been shot.
I got shot at 15.
At 15.
At my party.
At his party.
Okay, so for you too, Clifford, if when you were growing up, somebody said, let's go hang out in Meadowview or the Heights and shoot some hoops or something like that, would you have done that?
I did. With both
You
of
did?
them. Yeah. At a young age.
That isn't when you got shot, was it?
No, before and after.
Okay.
Because
So,
like I said, I grew up so fast and I hung around all neighborhoods. I grew up with him and him.
okay.
And I met a lot of people at NYSP too, so I was like a daredevil too, though.
Okay.
I took chances.
And he was a unique case in the city. He was just, the city loved him really. The
whole city, not just the
he
neighborhood.
claimed the side that he claimed, and his lineage come from that. But the thing is that the city loved him really. Right. It's just that he claimed the side, and people from other sides was torn because of it.
Right.
Well, and speaking of that, Marvin, why is it that oftentimes, unlike in Clifford's case, as you said, he was a unique person. Why is it that in these neighborhoods, you don't go to another neighborhood? What is that an unwritten rule, or what should people know that aren't from these neighborhoods about the possibility of just going to hang out with another neighborhood when you're from, say, Meadowview?
Yeah, well, they say that the streets make your name, right? And so, in the streets, if something goes on and happens between me and his neighborhood, first and foremost, they're looking at who did what. And then
Which neighborhood?
Which neighborhood did what, and then the particular players within that neighborhood that did whatever they did, right? And so when your name keeps coming up on that list,
Right.
I can't just pop up in the Heights. I can't just pop up on 29th Street. I can't, because of your reputation that precedes you.
Right.
And so you start to also try to live up to this reputation, and it creates more and more chaos. And that's what we try to do. But what we're doing is saying you're not your reputation.
Gotcha.
You're bigger than that.
So, Clifford, as somebody that was unique in the sense that you could kind of go to all neighborhoods, even though you still were from from Oak Park and basically claimed Oak Park, but still had the ability to go to different neighborhoods. What is the challenge now? And we'll get into more of what you and many others are doing for the city, which I think is unique and is really something that can lead to a better tomorrow. But what is the challenge in your mind, of breaking down those barriers between different neighborhoods, of getting to a point where this neighborhood doesn't do exactly what Marvin just talked about? Like something happens and now I have to go back at that neighborhood. What is the challenge of breaking down that division between neighborhoods where we can bring people together?
In the 90s, I started that, like the football games. I was the first one to do that. In my generation, against Oak Park Heights, Meadowview, Detroit, all of them. And my homie was mad at me. They put me in a circle, nose to nose with me, but I wasn't scared.
Because you tried to do that.
Because I tried to, because I get along with all the neighborhoods. And every time I rode with somebody to the neighborhoods, they be like, dang, you know all these dudes? I'm like, yeah. And I've gotten fights with them, shootouts with them, with all the neighborhoods in Sacramento. But I still was that good person. At the end of the day, I never turned on my friends I grew up with. And I still won't.
So how do we break that down, that desire not to collaborate or associate with other neighborhoods?
How we break it, what we doing now, trying to start off with the youth and then go on up. We start off with the older cats to show the youth that we still can do it. And then the third game, the youth came. That's right. You know what I mean? Because they didn't think we could do it. Me and him did it. Me and AB. They didn't think it was possible.
So, Aaron, I've known you for a while, and I know you work really well with younger folks, younger generations than what you grew up with. So, if you were, is there a difference between what goes on now with the younger generation than in your generation? Because you always hear every generation talk smack about the generation that follows them. Like, they're not as hardworking as us, they're not as good as us. But what would you say is unique about getting to young people today so they don't go through the things that you all went through?
Man, so one thing, is being older and being from the neighborhood and stuff, you can't be scared to talk to the kids. Right. You can't be scared to get in hold of them, talk to them, ask them questions, because I feel if you let them talk, you'll see their story. And when you see their story, you hear their story, now you're able to support their story. You're able to support them and show them resources and ways of going. But yes, it's a big difference from when I was growing up. Like I said, it was blood and it was your neighborhood. And now it's cliques. It's like different little cliques with our youth. You might have five or six cats from different neighborhoods clicked up in a clique called a different name now than what it was, just DPH, Oak Park, Meadowview. Now it's different names. I ain't gonna really put them out there, but there's different names that they're clicking up with. And this is how our kids are getting killed. Right, because the structure of OGs, where I consider myself now as an older cat OG, to be able to say something to our kids, if they don't respect you, they're not going to listen to it, right? So they're going to do what they do, continue their clicks, continue to be at certain places, go live on Facebook, talk about this and this, and then what other people call it, and they see what they call ops, or you hanging with the ops, or you doing this, okay, we finna slide and pull up because you live. Social media, big downer for our youth, and that's what it's killing.
So what you're saying is you didn't have social media when you was growing up?
No, we had a pager, man. Well, before I went to the pen, it was a pager. We had a pager. Cell phones just came out, the big too short phone.
Suitcase
phone. But that's what it is. Chief.
Okay.
I mean, Mr. Hahn.
And Marvin, I'm curious, what changed in your life? I mean, 20-some years is a long time to be incarcerated. So what brought you to this from where you were before you went, and maybe even while you were in custody? What changed? What made you want to do the work that you're doing now from where you were before?
Man, like I always say, it's just having real remorse, and it came through a process. And that's that same process that I try to get youth to identify with, because I've done so much work on myself, I can show that path. And the best way to give that example, like you were asking, is just that thing of showing up authentically as an example. We didn't have those examples growing up for people who had gone through what we've gone through and then come back to say, man, look, that nowhere that you run into is really nowhere. And so for me, though, it was a thing of constantly bumping my head in the penitentiary, then getting in the penitentiary with people that were from who I thought was my enemies, getting in this small cell and say, we thought this about you. We did that because we thought this. And then come to find out that all of it could have just been squashed with a conversation.
Straight up.
And here I am sitting with a 34-year to life sentence, and we're talking about something now that, it's cool that we ain't tripping like that no more.
Well, because in prison, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Neighborhoods don't meet as much in prison.
No,
right?
it doesn't. It doesn't, because it's more of a race thing in prison.
Right. So you come to prison with a neighborhood mindset, and then to survive.
Come to find out that you need the very people to survive that you called your enemies. And so I started to think, like, what sense does that make?
Right.
And those are some of the things that clicked for me that started my change.
So, Clifford, with the you had mentioned earlier that when you were growing up, you had a lot of female cousins and friends that all their boyfriends and were ballers and everything, and so you kind of looked up to that, and you wanted to be that. So
I
different
imagine
neighborhoods at that.
Yeah, and so I imagine there's still a certain, to a certain extent, that same sort of thing, young people who they're looking up to
Right.
and all that. So how do you, as elder or OG in the neighborhood, how do you take a young kid from looking up to somebody that maybe isn't the most healthiest example for them to looking up to somebody like yourself or Aaron and Marvin on today?
Honestly, to be honest, like all the cliques that's funking and tripping, I still deal with them, like, because I coached them on football, I picked them up, took them to their first concerts. I'm like one of the ones, like, I looked up to my OGs and never disrespect the elder in my life, and the young dudes still respect me as they big homie, and they love the positive stuff I'm doing. I get them in the car still right now, talk to them on the phone, all that. I got them all coaching. I was the first one coaching football, and I got a lot of them following my footsteps right now that's active.
So I think that's a good point. So if somebody from outside of the neighborhood that these youngsters didn't know at all, maybe even from, say Folsom, California, right? With a good heart, saying, I want to help kids in this neighborhood because I want to, lessen or eliminate the violence in this neighborhood. What's the difference between that person and you in regards to these youngsters?
That's a good one right there. Honestly, I would say mine, like with the youngsters, is I have a story to tell that to make them not want to do what we did and what I've been through in life. Because I was one of them guys before, and they gave me nowhere to send me to
In other words,
prison.
they can relate to you.
Yeah,
They might not be able to relate. Well, man, I can.
Because somebody told me before, we need to tell more success stories than different stories. I said, every story we tell is success, even if it's a bad story. We human just like everybody else. We black men like everybody else, but we want to tell them our story before they don't have a story like us.
Right. So, Aaron, growing up in my neighborhood, but more so, I was, as you know, I was a police officer for 34 years. And at no time in those 34 years would I have ever imagined this. The Oak Park, Meadowview, and the Heights, sitting down. And more than, you guys do way more than just sitting at this table, but working together, neighborhoods together, instead of just in your neighborhood and just in your neighborhood and just in your neighborhood. So tell me why is that possible now, and why do you do that? Because as an elder, you guys are doing this on a regular basis, and we'll get into some of that. But why do you think this is the answer, or at least part of the answer?
I think just understanding your story, speaking for myself, understanding my story and where I came from and what I was doing as a youth, right? To be able to work with men that I know that's been there and done that before. They've been to prison, they got out, they turned their life around, and they're trying to do better. Like Cliff said, I grew up with Cliff. He from the Oak Park, I'm from the Heights, but we had a program, summer programs back in the days where every neighborhood went to Sac State. Right. And it was called NYSP, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
I used to work there.
National Youth Sports Program. And all the kids went there, and you might get a fight or two, but it really wasn't really.
You getting a fight too in your own neighborhood.
Yeah,
Too.
so it wasn't over where you was from when we got in the fights. It was more of a girl or something like money or something like that, right? Right, or something like that. But it really wasn't where you was from because we knew we all had to be there, right? But now with everybody coming home and just cats that I know, that I feel, and I won't just work with anybody. Don't get me wrong, because I know that some older cats aren't changed. And they still giving our kids guns. They still feeding our kids the BS, right? So they're not changed, but I work with the ones I know deep down inside, they change, right? And that's what makes it easy for me, because you'll get into that cat and mouse with these cats, man, that they say, oh, I'm gonna change, I wanna go with brother to brother, I wanna help out and do what you're doing, but I know you're not all the way fixed yourself. You gotta fix yourself in order to do the work that you're doing today.
That's big. Marvin, why are you part of this larger group that you all are kind of representing today that brings neighborhoods together? What got you committed to doing this work?
Man, I don't want to seem over dramatic, but when you have your life taken from you and then it's given back, it's a different feeling. You wake up like every day is Christmas. If I could just give some type of reference that would make people understand. But the reason why I do the work, because I see so many youngsters that's great on accident. And so And so it's like I try to bring that, man, if you live on purpose and start to invest in yourself and understand that your worth is not connected to violence, your worth is connected to accomplishing things, making things happen for yourself, doing what men do, not always because it feels good, but doing it because it's necessary to do, as that's what men do. Men handle their business, real business. And so I do it because just like me, I see so many youngsters that were romanced to sleep by the streets, under this illusion. And if you can help them get from up under it at an earlier age, they can soar, and so I'm all about in any, whether it be Oak Park, Meadowview, or the Heights, I understand that all communities are our communities. And so whether it doesn't matter where the kid is from, it's just a matter of, can I get him to wake up from that illusion that says my worth is attached to violence? Because it's not. That's not what you're worth. You're worth look, it's untold riches in being you, man. Just get to that person and be you.
Well, along those same lines, a few minutes ago, you said it was a process, but there was some remorse and things for what you did. Talk a little bit about maybe the process and what you mean by remorse, because earlier you said you took a life, and I assume that's what you were talking about, remorse. Yes. And I think people that have never done that, never been to prison, maybe think that there is never any remorse, like you just a bunch of cold-blooded killers. So talk a little bit about that process.
In prison, you can go through a process, and it's all, the process starts with introspection, with looking within. And you have to be, sometimes, especially when you're a hardened criminal, you have to be really coaxed into doing so. Sometimes, it's like go stick your nose in the corner until you get it, you know what I mean? But the thing is that in that process, you get to learn who you are, and that's where I found gold. And that's why I'm so happy about doing the work, because I realize now that I robbed somebody, took their life, took their God-given path to find out who they are and who they will become. And when I found out how precious life is, it's like, wow. And that's the burden that a murderer lives with, is that when you really have that real remorse, you realize that I can't fix it. So the mission that that I'm on, it'll never be complete, but I'm on it nonetheless. And I'm still working, and my process is not finished. The work that I'm doing on myself is every day. And like Cardoza was saying, is I encourage people to do the work themselves, because when you do the work on yourself, you become authentic to your experience, so you can pass it on to people in that way. And it's not told for glory, it's not told for rationalization, justification, but you're telling it authentically to help somebody. And I think that's when you're at your best, is when you know yourself and you know how to approach people and how to connect with people.
So I want to ask this of all of you, and maybe I'll just start with Clifford. We'll get into the specifics of what y'all are doing now, but what would success look like? If you are successful in this collaborative kind of process with bringing neighborhoods and people together, what does tomorrow look like if you are completely successful in the things that you're doing?
It'd be great. It'll look great to me as far as success. I feel it's gonna take a minute. I'm gonna have to piggyback off on them on that question.
Yeah. So what would success look like? Like, what would our city, our neighborhoods be like if you're successful in being able to squash some of the stuff that you guys grew up in?
In a perfect world, it'd be, people would understand enough that, look, we're not each other's enemy at the least. If we're not saying just complete nonviolence, we're saying, look, non-aggression. We're just starting there. And that's the thing that we're getting people to realize, is that, look, as long as they're not tripping, I'm not tripping. Let's start there. You know what I mean? And so you give people room to grow. And I think at the end of this thing, and this is the thing about me, it's just as I look back on Martin and Malcolm, and I don't want to sound too deep, but the thing is that I know that I'm just a cog in the wheel, that I'm not going to see the end. Somebody else, somebody younger than me, but I'm trying to plant the seed in somebody that's younger than me to where they're carried it on. And so I want to think that, let's say 30, 40, 50 years from now, that we look back and say, man, when we used to have problems, we used to look at each other and want to mean mug and hurt each other. Now we don't feel that way about each other. And so that's what I think the process is.
I think that's so awesome that you say it like that, because I've had that same conversation with so many high-level, high-earning, tops of organizations that think it's all about them, right? They don't feel like they're the cog. Like, I'm gonna solve all this in my time here, and I'm always like, man, it didn't get this way overnight. It's not gonna be solved overnight. No. Same question for you, Aaron. What? I know you've been working a lot with a lot of different groups. What would success look like tomorrow if you guys are really able to accomplish what you're trying to do?
To see our younger kids, man, the younger ones now way up under us, just to be the next leaders in line, the next ones to prove and show, man, you know what? I'm going to show y'all that we can go to Oak Park, we can go to Meadowview, we can go around the city of Sacramento and just make Sac safe. You know what I mean? The city, my city, safe, because, you know, I got a daughter and she could be anywhere and get shot. You know what I mean? But she don't do nothing. She don't gangbang. She don't do nothing, right? But just to be able to put more safety around the city, I feel I accomplished something for the city and my child, you know, and my family, and just kids to go anywhere and be happy. And like, I'm finna go to Oak Park, and we finna go out there and play football, you know. But the younger generation's up under us because they're the ones up next. Right.
That's really what it's about, though. Is the youngsters. That's why we start off, like we said, we start off with the game we did, just let the youngsters see, instead of youngsters being 5 over there, 5 over there. So I give both of them saying on that. I agree with that 100% because that's what I push for now.
Right.
Everything, my Facebook posts, all that is for everybody pump gas again where they want to, not at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, then drive where they got to go. Worry about, you know, ride with the kids again.
Right.
Some people can't ride with their kids.
Right.
Well, I know none of you have said this, but for example, like Marvin at one point took a life. I would say the work that you're doing and the success that comes from it also saves lives. And I know you didn't say that, but if you are successful in getting a kid to chase their dreams outside of these destructive ways, you very well surely save some people's lives through this work. So I want to start with you, Clifford, on specifics on what you guys are doing. So talk a little bit about some of the ways that you're bringing, in a unique way, people, especially younger people, from all neighborhoods together. What are some of the things that your group is doing to get different neighborhoods that wouldn't normally hang out together? How are you, talk about some of the things you're doing.
Yeah, we started a 916 Alliance, a table like this. We meet up every Monday. And
Every week?
Every Monday.
People from different neighborhoods?
Neighborhoods. We feed the homeless. We go to schools. We like security guards too. For like somebody call us, we're going to pull up. And we sit here and break bread together. We talk about different ideas. We support each other's stuff that everybody do, because everybody at the table got organizations somewhere else. And everybody at the table, Crips, Bloods, 29th Street, Meadowview Heights, like that. So
I know in talking to you earlier last week at one of those at a breakfast, I think it was you that talked about sometimes when we put these together, a football game or a basketball game or whatever, you got kids, young people from your neighborhood that says, no, I'm not going.
All the time.
And then you mentioned, like, after they see it was cool and everything went good, some of them come back and go, hey, when's the next one? Talk a little bit about that. Why are some reluctant and then come around? What does it that makes them come around after they see the first one?
See the proof of it. Because like I said, even when I started back in the 90s, I was the same thing. Like I said, we ain't messing with these dudes. We don't deal with them. You deal with them dudes. We don't deal with them dudes. Next game when we have another one. The same thing when I go to the neighborhood. They talk mess about the neighborhoods. Where you finna go? I'm finna go to Meadowview. I'm finna go to Heights. Let me ride with you. The next, you see them out there without me sometimes. But that right there, they'll scratch their head and they'll be at the next one for sure.
So when you say the proof of, what do you mean by that? Mean like nothing happened bad at that event?
Everybody expects something to happen. But before it happens, you guys think negative from the gate. I've always been a positive thinker all my life. And they just think negative. Like, you'll still come to the game, see us right here talking, they'll be our homies 20 feet away from us. Instead of just come right here and talk with us. So watch the game from way over there, it makes it seem like it ain't cool.
So what are some of the things you've done? I think, football?
Yeah.
Right? Basketball?
Yeah.
Softball?
Yeah.
Where the teams are mixed
we got that one coming up for Black History Month. We got 916 Day. That's where all the hoods in Sacramento play on the same team.
Which sport?
Softball.
Softball. All right.
We just did flag football. It was on the news. He brought the news, Channel 3 News.
Good. Marvin, what has been your experience, whether it's personal or trying to get other people to do these events? If there's people with a reluctance, talk a little bit. Why are they reluctant? What are they concerned about? Why aren't they going initially and eventually come around?
Because of the history of these communities. when I started off gangbanging, it was dangerous just to walk from Candlewood to Amherst in that little stretch.
Because you might get caught.
Yeah,
right?
that's where you might get caught because it was all field there. It wasn't nowhere to run. It was just all field there. So I say all that to say is that the history of these neighborhoods really have people for generations, and people's been victimized and people's been traumatized. And it's been trauma that people haven't dealt with. So whenever you're talking about doing something with a bold mentality that he has, a lot of people are like, man, hold on, we need to see it first. And then they need a sort of permission. Like, because he gives so many people permission, that's another thing, a powerful thing that he didn't tell you here that he's not gonna say about himself is that the way that he's walked and the way that he was in the street gives a lot of people permission to be who he is now.
Gotcha.
And he makes it cool to be who he is now.
Because it's him doing it.
Because it's him doing it.
And the
Right.
And the relationship he
right.
has with
And
it.
so, and so at first people want to have a negative thing because a lot of times too, we come from communities, like I said, that has trauma. And so him doing something positive, we don't even want to see it.
Right.
And then even if it's positive, we don't want to see it because I can't learn to like what you're doing if I don't even like what I'm doing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's part of it too, you know.
Aaron, you mentioned you don't mess with all people, right? Some people aren't ready. Some people are still in the life. So how do you deal with those folks? I know, because I know you keep going, right? And you work with those. But how do you personally deal with that if these three aren't ready over here and these two are ready over here? How do you keep going knowing that these cats are going to keep doing what they're doing? And then I'm assuming that if they did come around, you would work with them.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do you personally keep going with that when you know there's some people still not ready?
Right. I just let them go and then watch them, and they come back around. And I saw that they've been working on themselves. They've been trying to get it together. But me and Cliff, I called Cliff and a few other cats from around the city. And I told them, I said, man, bring 10 to 12 of your youth from your neighborhood to the Heights. And they went and got 10 to 12 of their kids.
10 or 12 probably told Cliff, I ain't going to that.
They came. And so we had over 60 kids from all over the city of Sacramento that we know, we work with them, so we know what they're into. But I wouldn't have told Cliff to do this if I didn't trust that the kids trust Cliff enough to come in here with no BS, right? To not get into nothing. That's the whole thing. That's why I say I can't work with certain people unless I know that they fixed, because that would have been
too much at stake.
That would have been a big problem, having all them youngsters in one building. We know what's going on. We know what the funk around the city. But if I didn't trust Cliff, that I knew that he really changed his life. The kids trust him. The kids trust me. The kids trust the other cats. What was he from? Meadowview,
G Parkway,
right? And so in the Crip neighborhood, and so all of them were trust because I know them, and I seen what their dreams look like, and that's where I want to work. That's the way I want to do it in the city. If we can, I won't go to Elk Grove and pick the city councilmen and say, I need you to bring some kids. Never would I do that. Right? Because I don't trust them like that to do it. Not that they're bad people or nothing, but I just don't trust them because they ain't been there where Cliff been. Marv been. They ain't been there.
You're trusting these kids from another neighborhood to be around the kids that you have a relationship with because you trust Cliff.
Right.
Because he's the bond that brings this together for you, that you're able to do this because you trust in him.
Yes, sir.
And he's going to bring kids that aren't going to be acting.
They're going to respect him, and they're going to not act out. And what was they doing? Well, they was all they didn't even know. Some of these cats
wouldn't even know you from a different neighborhood.
If they didn't meet that person and know his real style, they're going off of social media or what the neighborhood's been like, right? Oh, this or what they hear. But when you bring them together in one room and you can't go nowhere because you got ex-felons like myself and OGs in there ready to tell them, hey, man, ain't none of that going on. Y'all get to know each other. And that's what it was. And we told their story. We had a panel of older cats telling their story to these young cats like, this ain't it.
You walk in and you got to look left, right. They didn't know what we was doing.
Right.
The kids
But they
popped
came
in.
because
They
you
came,
told
like,
them to.
like all of us did. Like everybody had to bring. So the kids, all the neighborhoods, they biting their fingernails off listening. They was really listening, tripping off us.
Yeah.
So they put themselves in an uncomfortable spot because they trusted you.
Yeah.
And trusted you and trusted you. So that's a lot of power.
Yeah.
Right? That's
That
good.
was a successful day too, because it woke them kids. They was listening. You know, some kids, that many kids in one room don't listen. Like, bro, and it's all kids, like you said, from different neighborhoods.
And I think the process sometimes is simpler than we want to, admit, is because a lot of times what happens is you just recognizing that somebody that's not where you from,
Right.
we have more similarities than we have differences, and you just that one reality is enough to make, man, look, I'm not gonna let what the streets say dictate me, and this dude's cool,
Right,
and that's
exactly.
my own experience, not something that I've been told.
That's the real stuff right there.
And that's what we're trying to get people to be, individuals.
And I think
Exactly,
if
yes.
you think about it in the streets, it's usually black gangs fighting black gangs, Mexican gangs fighting Mexican gangs, Asian gangs fighting, and they're not fighting different groups, right? They're
It'd be
fighting each other.
It'd be more inside hood fights than it do outside fights.
At the end of it.
So what I hear all three of you saying is you're not doing it by yourself.
No.
That you're doing it by collaborating
Yes.
with people that might not be a typical collaboration in your neighborhood, right? And therefore, you can accomplish things because you're not, I see so often people think, I'm do it all by myself. I don't want to work with that group. I don't want to work with that. I'm just going to do it all by myself. And those typically don't work. Like that's the way the world goes around. I think what most of our young kids don't realize, every single successful person you see, regardless of what you consider successful, had help, right? They didn't do it by themselves. Bezos didn't do it by himself. Elon Musk didn't do it by himself. So last couple of questions for all of you. If somebody is not familiar with your neighborhood and grew up in a different neighborhood, not an impoverished neighborhood, not a high crime neighborhood, and had things that maybe you didn't have, what do you want them to know about what's going to help all of our community thrive? What if you were just to put it in one or two sentences, what would you want them to know that are the things that we should be thinking about to lessen the violence in our most challenged neighborhoods? All of which you came from.
I think for me, just thinking about where I come from, Meadowview was such a beautiful place before the crack epidemic. I remember people in my neighborhood, everybody at the school, I'm talking about you have dudes doing backflips. I mean, like I say, just great on accident. Like, how do these dudes learn to, I used to admire my friends just as much for doing those backflips as I did when they start carrying guns. And I just want to get back to that point where we respect each other as human beings. And I think when we see these neighborhoods, we forget that those are still human beings in these neighborhoods, man. And a lot of people talk about being great Americans, but we need to get back to being good human beings, and then all the other stuff will fall in line.
Let me ask all of you this. That's along those same lines. I remember when I was going to City College right after high school, and like usually the first day of class, we would all introduce, the instructor would have us all introduce ourselves and where we're from. So I'd say my name, and I'd say I'm from Oak Park, and you could literally hear how'd you get out?
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, I'm not. I still live at home. Like, I'm not out. And it almost surprised me the way they looked at my neighborhood, because I didn't look at my neighborhood like that.
Everybody
Like,
does. You don't.
because I lived there, I knew there was great people
glad
there.
you
I
said
knew my
that.
neighbors, and even my friends that got caught up, I can remember when we were younger. And I'm like, man, I got more trouble than he got into. And they were just good kids, and at some point they got caught up and all that. Is that the same experience for y'all? Like, when you tell somebody you're from Meadowview, do you watch people that aren't from Meadowview kind of look at like, oh my God, and are surprised at what they're looking at?
I am now, but it's because of when I say I'm from Meadowview now, I'm not talking about the gang.
Right.
You know, that's the difference too, is that so I know that I smeared the name Meadowview, right? So I have to take some of that responsibility. When I hear somebody smirk or see somebody smirk at that, I know that I'm partly responsible for that. So I can't take the same stance that you take because I haven't earned that.
Right.
But yeah, it still bothers me because I'm speaking of a Meadowview that was really a beautiful place and still is a beautiful place right now.
Oak Park to me always been, like I said, my mom and dad's both sides from right there. I grew up in a kind of rough, but I had a great family though. That was the thing, like I said, the following era. But like it be so many people I kick it with that ain't from Oak Park I bring out there. They only got the car, but you got a car, the dudes, they cool. But like I was saying earlier, it's all about the individual. Because instead of that's real as hell.
And I'm gonna tell you the truth.
I preach that so much.
That a lot of people don't say. You can't in the gang world, you admire your enemies. We always wanted what they do over there. You know what I mean? You gonna admit that? Yeah, of course. Because I have nothing to hide. I'm not a gang member. You know. So, but it's the truth.
That's
you know,
the
and people
truth.
need to hear the truth. You know, because the truth of the matter is
Amen to that.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is that you only consider these guys your enemy because you consider them worthy, on some level. Right. And so, yeah.
You know, everybody hated Oak Park.
Yeah.
And then, like, if our girls Ice Kids, everybody's girls in Heights. Like, that's why they couldn't stay when I was out there.
I used to tease people like, you come to Oak Park because you know our girls.
But he's like, he starts seeing it mix around.
See, Aaron's shaking his head. He must have been one of them.
Well, you know, I used to go to the South Side to get the girls, or the North Highlands. So I wasn't never in the Heights. So you never get them where you from. That's where I was. That was the city.
They get on your nerves.
Right.
My first baby mom was like, Ebony Chain.
They like friends and
never
sisters where you from. But the Heights, Del Paso Heights
grew
to
up
me
with the
was
chain.
love. You hear me? Del Paso Heights to me was love, man. And anybody that ever talked down on Del Paso Heights, it wasn't to whereas, you know, unless it was like gang related or whatever, talking down. But if it was just people that had an understanding about Del Paso Heights and came to me and was like, man, ain't the Heights y'all out here killing, y'all doing this and this. I'm like, well, you got to live there to understand it. And
right. Amen.
If you ain't from there to come and live there, I wouldn't let, if somebody came from out of somewhere else and asked me, well, Aaron, how can I be a part of helping you in your neighborhood? You know, I would say you got to get to know the neighborhood yourself because I grew up and I live here still, you know, and so I can't allow any outsiders come to Del Paso Heights and try to do anything before we do it. Right, you know, and that's been effective with the Asians and different community different people coming into our neighborhood, building around us, but we slowly still there, but we become more homeless, more poverty, more things like that because you're kicking us out the houses that we grew up in.
Right.
You hear what I'm saying?
That's definitely happening in Oak Park for sure.
Man, I've seen that.
Yeah. So open this up to any of you. So somebody that thinks that, look, this is a waste of time what y'all are doing. When somebody messes up, arrest them, lock them up, throw away the key. When they get out and mess up again, lock them up, throw away the key. Matter of fact, maybe none of you should even be out. What do you say to a person like that could convince them that there's more to this than just that simple black and white, you mess up, send you to prison?
Well, for me, you can't describe where I need to be. Only God can do that, right? But when, you know, they say it's a revolving door for, you know, gangsters or, you know, people that went to prison before. And I believe it goes way back to like slavery, to when they really made these laws to trap African Americans, men at that point. And the reason I say that is because you look back to try to say, get your life back after doing so much time in prison, and you want to get your life back. It's steps that you have to take, and even after them steps, you still don't have your life back 100%. So we still are away from having our lives back, but it's up to us to be happy and live the lives that we live in today, to be able to join hands with brothers that has been down the same road as we have. So I look at it as, you know, I might not have my case off the record, but I'm around those that's been on the record before, and it's easy for me to communicate what we need done in our communities.
Marvin, how about you? I don't believe it's that black and white that you can just throw people away for mistakes here and there, because I think we all make mistakes. Some of us get caught more for mistakes. Some of us make bigger mistakes than others. What about, and you as somebody that said you had a process to go through, what do you want people to know that really make it really simple and say you mess up, just lock you up and throw away the key.
I just think that, and it's not because of what I think, it's my experience that everybody that I've come in contact with in life, and that sounds crazy, but everybody has redeemable qualities. I think that God didn't build you for failure, he built you for success. It's just a matter of you tapping into that. And I believe that if a person is given a chance and set on the right path with the right state of mind, I believe that they can accomplish anything. And I believe that anybody that's lived long enough should be able to see that. And if they don't, I don't knock them, because I had an skewed mindset too. I will continue to try to work with them, just be how somebody tried to work with me. I work in humility. My walk is in humility because of all the help that I've had, like you were saying. Mm-hmm. And so I don't condemn anybody, even the person that doesn't see me as being worthy. I know that I've done enough things to not be worthy, so I really can't condemn the person that thinks like that, but I just hope that through my demonstration, they'll see a different thing and have a different opinion.
Awesome. Cliff, same question, but put this way. Why are the young people you work with worth it?
That's like sweat of hope. You know what I mean? Sweat of hope. It's worth it because I see them in me sometimes. I see a lot of parents ain't participating sometimes. And I get so many text messages and phone calls, and they live with their parents because I don't fake on the kids. And if I got an excuse for them, it's a real one. You know what I mean? And I just can't, I just won't give up on them. I can't. And like you said, throw away the keys and that. Because like I said, we gotta do our investigation on them, see what the problem is. There's a lot of stuff at home that we'll never know about.
Well, it's one of the reasons why we are doing this today, because I think when people listen to this and listen to you talk and the emotion and everything that you guys show and watch you and all that, if you hadn't said at the beginning of this you had been to prison, I don't think they would ever know that.
I appreciate that.
And so, last question for all of you, and whoever wants to go first, go first. If somebody is listening to this and you've inspired them to do something to help with the efforts that you are bringing different communities together to squash all the past and all these other things and come together and make their lives better and be successful and be able to chase all their really healthy dreams that everybody has, what can somebody do to help you in the efforts? Like if they just said, I'm willing to help, what could they do?
I say reach out to us and the organizations that you see doing the work out here to try to help our kids, man, to really be successful, to reach out to them and lend a hand of what you can do. But for me, I would say, I'm trying to get boxing rings in every neighborhood. And when I say that, I mean it because, we got to get boxing classes and boxing rings. And I'm not promoting fighting, but I am promoting putting the guns down and picking up the gloves. And if you can do that, that means...
And being around positive coaches and all sorts of stuff. It ain't just sports.
Right. And we'll have everybody on board. We'll have an ambulance there, like a real boxing match, right? Because I used to, promote boxing and stuff. But I want to do the boxing thing around, have it in every neighborhood. So that way, Marv can go to one of his kids and say, who is it that you dislike, that you really want to hurt, or you really want to kill? Well, it's old boy in Del Paso Heights. Okay, Marv Mitchell, reach out to me. Hey, man, it's the kid out there one of my kids don't like. I said, let's set up a boxing match. Let's let them get the anger out that way, and let's just try it that way, because we haven't tried to put it in each one, in each neighborhood. And we might come to the Heights one day. We might go to the Oak Park. We might go to Meadowview. But wherever the fight's going to be, I just feel that you put the guns down, pick up the gloves, it's going to be much easier. So you want to help doing that,
So how would they
invest.
do that? Would they contact Brother to Brother? Or
you can contact Brother to Brother for sure.
Where would that be? Is that at brothertobrothermentoring.org or the phone number? Or how
you can look us on Facebook, or you can come to 3730 Marysville Boulevard, and that's right there where our building is at.
Okay. Marvin, how if somebody listening to you today wants to help with this effort, that
just
all
to
of you
reach
are
out to any of the men here, me personally through GTA Marvin Mitchell on Instagram and Facebook. We are working in the spirit of cooperation with anybody who's really about doing the work, and so that's just our thing. And
Say the Instagram again.
Marv Mitchell on Instagram and Facebook. And, the name of my nonprofit is Gang Tragedy Awareness.
Good. Cliff, how can somebody that listens to you today help in this effort?
I would say reach out. You know, I always ask everybody, are you willing to work with anybody? And that's serious because a lot of people still hold grudges. A lot of people still can't, move the right way. So it depends. Matter of fact, it depends on the type of person it is first. It's one of the people that grew up like us. Because a lot of people reach out to change all the time and put them to the test. So we got a homeless fee to come out there, and if you make it on time, that'll show me something.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, I want to thank you all, not only for just being here today and helping to educate people, because we all need more information to make better decisions. Right. And we should all be concerned about making tomorrow better for all people, because if there's people that are suffering in our city, then our whole city suffers because of it. But more importantly, for doing what you all have done and continue to do to help the city that I was born and raised in, or probably live for the rest of my life, that my children live in, that my family lives in. I appreciate all of you and the work that you do, and most importantly, for being a leader. Because not all people can be leaders. And it takes leaders to have followers to get out of some of the destructive things that we're in. So I appreciate all of you for what you do every day. One of the big purposes of A Way Forward is to hear different voices and different opinions, because that is how we can make informed decisions ourselves. So if you are someone that would like to come on A Way Forward to express your opinion, go to chiefhahn.com/podcast. Chief, HAHN.com/podcast.